YouTube, we just witnessed one of the craziest NBA draft lotteries in the last decade. One that pops into my head that's comparable is the Cavaliers jumping up all the way to number 1 in the 2014 NBA draft to land Andrew Wiggins and then trade him to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Kevin Love. But there are some clear winners and losers of this lottery, and the obvious choice for the winners being the Atlanta Hawks, who jumped all the way from the number 9 spot in the lottery with a 3% chance of getting the number 1 pick and quite literally winning the lottery. Now, this changes a whole lot for the Atlanta Hawks and their offseason and their future, and they're gonna have some big time decisions to make. In this video, I want to talk about the Atlanta Hawks and other teams in the top 5 and maybe some teams outside of the top 5 that had a good chance of getting in there. I want to talk about the notable changes in the lottery odds to the actual results, and just a quick recap of the NBA draft lottery and what that looks like for every team and how that might play out in the offseason. Let's get right into the video, folks. So first things first, I'll probably put a picture on screen of the actual lottery odds before the lottery took place yesterday, with the Pistons and Wizards having a 14% chance to get the number 1 overall pick, having the worst records in the NBA last season, these being the top 2 teams having the best odds. And then it goes down to the Hornets and Blazers with about a 13% chance, the Spurs rounding out the top 5 with a 10% chance, and then the percentages after the Raptors at number 6 really dropped down significantly, Raptors being at number 6 having the 9% chance, but that pick will probably be converted to the San Antonio Spurs. If you guys remember in that Jakob Poeltl deal where the Raptors sent their first round pick to San Antonio, kind of a bad trade in retrospect. But then it goes Grizzlies, Jazz, Nets, but again the Nets pick will be converted to Houston's pick because of the James Harden trade, another bad one. And then the most famous team in this lottery, the Atlanta Hawks, with the 9th and 3% chance, and then it goes Bulls, Rockets, Kings, and Warriors. Now these are the odds, right? And so obviously some things are going to be moving around. A lot of times you see it stays pretty similar, but this was not that type of lottery, folks. I gotta tell you, here are the results. The top 14 picks will be Atlanta Hawks, who jumped from 9 to 1, like I said, with those 3% odds of getting that. Washington Wizards sticking at number 2. Another big winner that I want to talk about in this video of the lottery is the Houston Rockets, who had a 4% chance via the Brooklyn Nets pick at number 8, jumping up to number 3. San Antonio Spurs will move up from 5 to 4. Pistons, Hornets, and Blazers all getting really raw deals here, going to 5, 6, and 7 respectively. And then the Raptors move from 6 to 8, which will be the Spurs pick, like I said. Grizzlies sliding back from 7 to 9. Jazz sliding back from 8 to 10. Then we have the Chicago Bulls moving back 1 pick to 11. The Oklahoma City Thunder at 12, which was the Houston Rockets pick, which was actually the 12th pick, so that stays where it was. And then we have the Kings and the Blazers rounding out the lottery, Blazers pick being from Golden State. Now let's do a little deep dive on each team and how this affects their offseason and what it means for them. Are they lucky? Are they unlucky? How will this affect what we thought was going to be likely in their offseason? And let's start with the Atlanta Hawks. Now this is the most interesting to me because the Hawks had a crucial offseason coming up, right? Where you have Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. You have this team that's pretty mediocre and you're looking to blow it up. You have some really good future pieces in guys like Jalen Johnson and Yeka Okongwu, and some younger guys like DeAndre Hunter that maybe you would hope can develop quite a bit. And then maybe you get a lot of picks for a guy like Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. You kind of enter into a rebuild and then work from there, right? At least that was what a lot of people thought was going to happen this offseason. In my opinion, this first overall pick really changes a lot of things in a plan like that. Now you have a situation where you're the Atlanta Hawks, right? And the big thing was maybe Trae Young was going to be on the trade market this offseason and get traded to a different team. Now I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I mean, now you look at it a little bit differently if you're the Hawks, right? You have a ton of young players and assets that are definitely movable and highly sought after, like Trae Young, like DeJounte Murray, and now you have the first overall pick in your pocket. One could say maybe this even enhances their rebuild and plans of doing a rebuild, because now you have a first overall pick to be able to combine with the young guys you want to build around, move on from these aging guys like DeJounte Murray and Trae Young and Clint Capella, who don't necessarily fit your timeline right now. And now you add another top tier blue chip prospect to the table to be able to begin your rebuild, right? You could look at it like that, or you could look at it like, hey, we have a pretty good roster right now. We have a mix of young guys and star type players that are in their prime, and now we add a generational defensive big man in Alex Sarr to our roster, which if you watch the Hawks over the last year, defense has been their biggest weakness. You add a dynamic threat inside the paint, you move on from Clint Capella, and maybe you find a way to tweak the roster a little bit around those guys. Like I said, maybe you trade Clint Capella and you add some more depth, or maybe some extra firepower offensively or defensively, either side of the ball. But the point is, you're gonna have some real decisions to make if you're Atlanta in the offseason, and it's gonna have to be some big ones. I mean, it's either rebuild or go all in my opinion now, because one thing they're not gonna do is stay mediocre. We know that. That's certain death, even though they quite literally won the lottery doing that right now. They have to make a decision either to try to get this team to a contender overnight in the offseason or move on and rebuild. I personally think this makes the Hawks really interesting. You could definitely consider trading this pick for a lot of assets if you don't feel like this is the best draft, which a lot of people are saying it's not. I'm not a draft expert. I don't, study film or anything like that, but I do hear around that this draft is a little lackluster in terms of top tier talent, but I do think adding Alex Sarr would be a nice fit to the Hawks. If you want to move on from Clint Capella at that big man role, could really make your defense pretty dynamic. Now, like I said, the Hawks are the most interesting part of this draft. They're going to have a big decision to make leading up to draft day and in their offseason, and this will definitely change things the way we looked at it before. And that's the bottom line. Now, at number 2, the Washington Wizards, stay put at number 2. That's a pretty good thing for them, I'd say, considering how a lot of other teams in the top 5 moved down quite a bit, and some of them out of the top 5, which we'll get to. I'd say the Washington Wizards got to feel pretty good about sticking at number 2. Obviously, you want the first overall pick, but, second is second best thing. So Washington Wizards will basically get, the pick that they want, which is really, really good thing for them, as they, are just basically trying to stack all the young, talented assets that they can right now in hopes to rebuild in more of a, long-term type of rebuild. They just need a lot of good players, and that's going to help them do that at number 2. Now, the craziest part of this draft, other than the Hawks, is the Houston Rockets, who get a massive boost up from number 8 to number 3. And, the Houston Rockets really, really impressed me, and I think a lot of other people around the community last year with the way they came out and competed and played every single game. They are clearly one of those teams that, if they get a superstar or, they're about a star player away from really making some noise in the West. And I think this number 3 pick is really going to help them have a lot of flexibility to be able to either trade this pick or a star type player, or hang tight and maybe you like a guy at number 3 and you take him, right? So the, Rockets win massively in this lottery, and, you're sitting at number 8, you're expecting to get maybe a good player, but maybe not the player you want, as, 7 people are going to be picking before you. Now you're in a position where, hey, we got the keys to this situation. We could take the 3rd best player in the draft who we think, or, maybe even if a guy falls that you think is number 1, you could take at number 3, or you could trade the pick for that star type player that I'm talking about and really, make some noise in the West next season. Up to you if you're the Rockets, but this is a massive, massive W for the Rockets. Congratulations to the Rockets. Now, San Antonio moves up from 5 to 4, and this is a big deal because everyone knows that the Spurs really, really need a point guard, and there's a lot of good point guards in this class from what I'm seeing. And in my opinion, I don't even know that a point guard's even going to go in the top 3. So you really could maybe even land the best point guard in the draft at number 4, which is a really big deal if you're San Antonio. But not only that, you also have the 8th pick from Toronto. So you're going to have 2 chances and 2 swings at it if you want to take them, which you should, I think, if you're San Antonio. I think you make both of these picks and you stay there, you don't trade them, and you take, your point guard of the future, hopefully, and, another really good guy to add to the squad. San Antonio is in a great, great spot in this draft, and like I said, moving up from 5 to 4 is really going to put you in a position to be able to take the best point guard in the class, if not the 2nd best, right? So I expect San Antonio to stay put with these picks and take a couple swings at their future. Now, the biggest loser of this draft, man, and it sucks because this team is accustomed to losing, unfortunately, and I really, really feel for their fan base because they've been through everything and more this past season and just in their franchise in general, and that is the Detroit Pistons coming in from number 1 to number 5, and that is just awful, man. The Pistons were absolutely the epitome of a disappointment this season. They came into the season expecting to make some strides, and you see similar things with the Orlando Magic. I think that's what Pistons fans were kind of expecting, to be close, in the playoff hunt type of team. I don't think they were expecting to be contenders, but get these young guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, get some competition and some, play-in playoff experience under their belt. That's what I think was the goal this season. They end up having the worst record in the NBA. I can't remember tying or breaking the losing streak record, and all of that accumulates into the number 5 overall selection. Well, the good news for the Pistons is, like I said, this isn't the most top-heavy draft we've ever seen. There's not even a clear-cut number 1 right now, so there is a clear lack of top-end talent in this draft, but there is a lot of good depth from what I understand. So in this draft in particular, it could be, from what I'm seeing, that number 5 and number 1 aren't so different. Obviously, they are different because, number 1 gets whoever they want, right? They get to pick their player before anyone else, so they get the best college player in their eyes that fits their team. So that is a big deal, right? But in terms of the top 5, players on the board, what I'm saying is I think there is a very, narrow difference between each one from what I understand. So that is a little bit of a silver lining for the Pistons. I know this is the worst thing for their franchise, and I really feel for their fans. You're a Pistons fan watching this video. I totally hate that this happened to you guys, because I can't even relate. I've been through a ton of stuff with my Sixers, but when we won 11 games and 10 games and 13 games every season, we were getting the number 1 pick. So I can't really complain too much. We made the wrong choices. Now that's a whole different story, but man, Pistons really got a raw end of the deal here in this lottery, and I really, really feel for them. They're going to have the 5th pick, and like I said, the only thing you can be a little bit optimistic about is that the first overall pick doesn't seem to be a lock. And, it's not like a year where it's like there's a clear-cut superstar in the making at number 1 and you lose out on that guy. So maybe that's a little bit of a, I'm trying to look at the, right side of this if you're a Pistons fan, but there's just not much. I do apologize. Now, Charlotte Hornets, another team that got really kind of a raw deal in this lottery, moving all the way from number 3 to number 6. And Charlotte, like Washington, like Detroit, they're just looking to stack up as much talent as they can. So, the third pick is obviously a big deal to lose out on. If you are Charlotte with the third best odds and moving down to 6, this is a real bummer for you guys. The plus side is Charlotte, maybe more than a lot of these other teams in the top, 8 or so, have a couple of their future cornerstones locked in, and that is, LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. So that is a positive. You already have a lot going for your franchise, maybe more than some of these other teams like Washington, but it is a bummer to, move from 3 to 6. I totally get that. They're just trying to take the best player they can, and they will have the 6th pick to be able to do that. Portland Trailblazers moved from 4 down to 7, which is another bummer, man. They had a really tumultuous season, and the good thing about the Trailblazers, I think, is that they have a lot of their guys locked in, like I said, kind of like the Hornets and maybe even the Pistons to some degree. You have Anthony Simons, who is clearly going to be the franchise cornerstone of your team unless, something crazy happens, but I would expect Anthony Simons to be, someone you view long-term as a real keeper, right? You have Jeremy Grant locked in, who I think, that was kind of a bad contract and it doesn't fit your timeline at all, but regardless, he's a really solid player, and, you have him around for quite a while. Guys like Shaedon Sharpe and DeAndre Ayton are, developing projects who, could totally be seen as long-term options. So, have a lot going for you, but obviously kind of like the Charlotte Hornets, moving from 4 to 7 is not ideal, right? So, Portland, another team that, gets the raw end of the deal here. From 5 to 7, man, these teams got absolutely demolished in this lottery, which is super unfortunate. San Antonio Spurs pick at 8. We already talked about that. And then, it goes from Memphis to Utah to Chicago to Sacramento to Portland to round out the lottery. But Portland, like I said, they have 2 picks, but so you can't really, that's a good sign if you're Portland. But big question for me is like, at number 12, does Oklahoma City, stick and keep that pick or maybe trade it? Is this finally the offseason that they cash in on and try to get that superstar piece? We'll have to see about that. They're currently in the second round battling it out with Dallas down 2-1 as I make this video. But again, Thunder are one of those teams that are just absolutely in the driver's seat of their future and really will have an opportunity to control their own destiny in a lot of ways. And this pick could be on the move. I could see that for sure. Maybe to round out their roster with a little more veteran talent. Big thing I find interesting is Memphis. What do they do? They have a lot of, questionable things up in the air in their franchise. Hopefully if you're Memphis, you're just looking to get everyone back and healthy and, on the floor. And if that happens, I could see them being a real problem in the West once again. But, 9 is a pretty solid spot to be picking at if you're Memphis, with already a contender type team at full strength. So, you hopefully go into next year with Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, and these guys all healthy. You found some really good pieces through all this turmoil, like Gigi Jackson, like Vince Williams. And I don't think you would have found how good those guys were if everyone wasn't injured. So like I said, a silver lining maybe if you're Memphis. I know it was a terrible season, but you did get the 9th pick out of it, and maybe you get someone good. Utah at number 10, Chicago at number 11. These are the teams that could really use a boost in terms of like, high-end talent offensively and defensively. I think, Chicago might be looking for, kind of a reset button type offseason. I mean, they should have done it 4 years ago, but Utah as well, they're in an interesting spot. They're just looking to stack up good pieces. And Sacramento is a really interesting spot here at 13. I think they're going to be staying in this pick, and they're going to be looking to hit a home run with the 13th pick, and that rounds out the lottery. So let me know down in the comment section. I just wanted to give a quick recap. This is an absolutely wild lottery. I totally feel, when I heard the Hawks got the number 1 overall pick, I just immediately, my first thought was, oh my goodness, Detroit Pistons fans. Like, I felt so bad for them because I know what it's like to be in that spot of winning, being the laughing stock of the league and winning, less than 20 games and just having that type of season. And then I can't even imagine if the Sixers, the year they won like a 10 or 11 games, fell to 5, I would literally probably never watch the NBA again. I don't know how you guys are going to be able to deal with that, man. But I will say, man, if that is going to happen to you guys, this is the year that you would want that to happen, because like I said, there's not a clear-cut number 1 superstar in this draft, and that is the type of year you want to fall to number 5 if you're gonna. So get it out of the way now, and hopefully, Cade Cunningham, like I said, is really taking a lot of leaps in his game and played like a star this season, so that's something to be encouraged about. But Pistons fans and Hornets fans and Blazers fans, I really feel for you guys. It just feels like the poor get poorer in the NBA, man, sometimes. And if you're a fan of one of those teams, I totally get that feeling, man. Maybe we got lucky as Sixers fans getting Joel Embiid out of it, but that was lucky in its own right. So your day will come, man. You just keep making the right decisions, keep supporting your team, and it'll come. Hornets fans, Blazers fans, and Pistons fans, I really feel for you guys. You guys, it'll turn around, I promise. As far as the Atlanta Hawks, they are gonna have one of the most interesting off seasons coming up in the entire league, up there with the Sixers, up there with the Lakers, up there with the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll talk about all these off seasons, so make sure you guys subscribe to the channel because I want to do like a deep dive in every team's off season. The Hawks are going to be top of my list, right, to be able to cover that. So like I said, make sure you guys drop a like on the channel. Big winners Hawks, big losers Pistons, big losers Charlotte Hornets and Portland Trailblazers. Maybe the biggest winner other than the Hawks are the Rockets. So big time movement in this draft lottery. Let me know down in the comment section how you think it's going to shape up. Let me know if you guys have any knowledge on like the college class. I don't pay attention to college basketball and really should for the channel, but I don't know too much about the prospects coming in. I know a little bit about the draft overall. I know a little bit about the top 5 picks or so, guys, and I have my favorites. But let me know down in the comment section if you watch college and you really pay attention to this draft stuff. What do you think is going to happen in this top 5 as far as if everyone sticks at their picks? Who do you think is going to get taken by each team? Who fits the best? I know there's an abundance of big men in this class and point guards, so let me know down in the comments who you think the Hawks take, and if they stay at number 1, who they take. I think Alex Sarr would be an awesome fit alongside those guys, but let me know, man, because I really don't know about draft stuff, so it'd really help me out. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. We upload every single day on this channel. Basketball is my passion, and I know if you're watching this video right now, it probably is yours too, so make sure you guys stick around, man. We want you to be able to partake in the stuff that I put up on the channel, and it would really mean a lot to me. So hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of your day today. Hopefully your favorite team didn't get absolutely cooked in this draft lottery, and hopefully if you're a Hawks fan, you guys got to be having a party right now. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day today. This is your boy D-Have, and as always, peace.